All right, so we have six-time Downbeat Magazine Award winner Rico Jones here with us. How's it going, Rico?
Going great.
Um, it's been quite a while, but I remember we met back last November in front of the Apple store, and I was not even supposed to be there. It was complete serendipity. And I had a meeting that was canceled, so I had some time to kill. I went into the Apple store. I come out and I hear this incredible music. And to this day, as I told you, you were with, I think, like eight other jazz musicians playing in front of the Apple store. And to this day, it's the best street music I've ever heard.
Wow.
And absolutely. And you had another cat on sax, some black dude playing with you. And you were like, you had a nice conversation going. And the funny thing is, and this is a true story, and I think I may have told you this, but you may have forgotten. I went out from the Apple store and I heard this incredible music, and you playing straight ahead jazz. And after the first song, I was like enthralled, and I said, "Now play something more challenging. Play Giant Steps." And like mind blown. Like within 30 seconds, you went into Giant Steps. Like, what the hell is that? It was just really like telepathic or something.
Whoa.
It was incredible. I mean, you all started together in unison, and then you play this solo, and I said, "Oh man, I got to hang around here." And I ended up hanging out another 45 minutes. It was just insane, but it was such a treat. And then you invited me to a show over at Cafe Bohemia, which was exactly a month later, and we did show up down in the basement. And I still have that in my phone right now. I still have the footage. I go back and listen to it. It's awesome. So what I wanted to say is, how did you end up being a street performer in front of the Apple store in the Village? How did that come about?
I mean, I guess I've been doing it for almost a year, so it's hard to remember exactly how it started. I have a vague memory, but I do know that my friend Tony Golden, he's a bass player from Colorado. We grew up together, I guess maybe from late middle school through high school. We went to the Denver School of the Arts together, and then he ended up going to the Manhattan School of Music where I went. He's, I think, 2 years younger than me, but he invited me one time to go perform with a man by the name of Uroš Markovic. He said, "Hey man, come down. We need somebody to play." And playing music is just such a passion of mine. And I mean, I'd had some experience busking before. I think the first time I'd ever done it was, I guess maybe when I was in the sixth grade. I went out to South Park, Colorado, and I took my horn out, and it wasn't really busking. I just wanted to play. I wanted to practice the horn. I just wanted to be on the horn from the moment I kind of started playing. But that was kind of my first time playing out in a public area like that. And but in 2020, I started doing these concerts on my front yard. They started out as jam sessions with friends because we had been locked up for months, and we wanted an outlet to be able to make music together. So I got some friends together to play on my parents' front yard in Colorado, and turned into this crazy outdoor concert series that that would bring 50 to 100 people or more together each weekend. We would do it.
That was back in Denver, where you're originally from.
Right, that was back in Denver, and I mean, I've continued it to this day. I'm out here in Colorado right now to do some concerts before I go to New York City. But there's a lot of reasons why I do it. I think a lot of reasons.
Yeah, but you have such a passion for music, and I would think that is the driving force behind it all.
Yeah, that really is. I mean, I kind of I want to adhere as much as I can to this childlike sense of hyperfixation on music. I don't want anything else to get in the way. And there's been some new opportunities presented to me that are a little different off the performance path. But yeah, the whole reason I busk is just so I can spend all day playing the horn and then hope that people appreciate it.
Yeah, I ran into something on Tumblr of all things, and I really respected what you said to your fans. You said, "You're not going to see me on social media for a while because I need to totally focus on my art. So if you need to contact me, email me, phone me, hit me up some other way, but you're not going to see me in social media. But I'm not deleting my accounts because I'm going to still promote my art that way." I really appreciate the straightforwardness there.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, even that now it's still a struggle because I don't really know what the whole purpose of platforms like that are. You see some very, very successful and talented people taking it places. I mean, I think there's people who even get major record deals with labels, but I'm really trying to come to terms with sometimes it appears like there's reasons for a following that don't have much to do with music. It could be making funny jokes or making attention grabbing posts, and I'm not necessarily condemning that, but to me also what's the word,
Not about the music. It's not about, it's going off topic, and that's the problem with 2023 with all this social media.
right, and the perception is different. I might have 100,000 followers, but if it's because I'm making funny jokes or interesting posts, but it doesn't revolve around my music, it's still an accomplishment. I'm not trying to diminish that for anybody, but at the end of the day, those 100,000 people aren't in love with what you're creating. They aren't touched by the art you're making.
To make an exaggerated example, it's like me posting a video of a cat falling off a wall and me catching it and saying, "Go check out my Spotify," and then I'll get a high click-through rate, but people are not going to necessarily stream the music because they like the cat. They didn't like my music.
Exactly, and that's the difficulty there.
Yeah. Hey, what made you decide to move to New York City and to try to make it here in the jazz scene?
Well, there's the whole history present. I guess maybe in many music and artistic circles, there's like this mystique and this legendary status that's given to New York and all the artists that made their name there over the years. So that was definitely part of the allure. And I also had a teacher that I studied with virtually in high school, and periodically in person, this tenor player or saxophonist by the name of Adam Larson. And he happened to go to the Manhattan School of Music, where I later, I chose to get my schooling. He was an influence for that. And, as I said, there's so many people that I admired, like John Coltrane and Charlie Parker and Lester Young and Jackie McLean and Sonny Rollins and, so the list can go on forever. But
Wayne Shorter, he just passed away this year.
Wayne Shorter too,
Yeah.
Jonathan Kreisberg, or just so many great artists.
Man, what made you decide to pick up a tenor sax? I know you started as an alto sax when you were 11 years old. I was reading. Was that just a natural progression to go to tenor sax by a certain age, or was it a premeditated decision?
I suppose, generally speaking, younger people start out on the alto if they start on saxophone because it's smaller. And the alto is a great instrument. A couple of my favorite musicians of all time are Jackie McLean and Charlie Parker. But I think the person who inspired me initially to play the tenor was a local Denver saxophonist by the name of Laura Newman. And she was gracious enough to let me sit in with her band when I was 10 or 11 or 12 years old, around that age. And mind you, I wasn't prodigious. I had a passion and I had maybe some confidence, but I didn't have I didn't have the language or the technique or any of that, but I had some enthusiasm. And she was gracious enough, and the members of her band were gracious enough to allow me to play. So, and she played the tenor, so that inspired me. And so when the opportunity came up at the Denver School of the Arts in middle school, I think I was in seventh grade, the band director, a really influential person in my life, Dave Hammond, the band director there, he had a need for a tenor saxophone player, and he said, does anybody need, or does anybody want to play the tenor saxophone? And I shot my hand up because I knew Laura Newman, my local hero, and John Coltrane, and Lester Young. I knew they played the tenor, so I kind of wanted to be like them.
How did you learn how to improvise so well over complex changes? Because many people simply cannot do that, including myself. Like I play fusion, but then to play over these straight ahead changes, that are going out of key and then back in key and everything. That's some heavy shit, quite frankly.
I think part of it, it's just like being willing to get up on the bike and give it a go, and then literally fall on your ass or your face,
Yeah.
your knees, and just do it over and over and over and over, and because there'll be moments where you listen back, if you have a recording, you say, wow, that sounds horrible, I don't like anything I'm saying, and then you keep working on it, keep getting on that bike, and then after a while you listen back again, okay, I'm pretty proud of the progress I've made. I sound similar. There's some things I can pick out that are kind of like the people I admire most,
Did it take you a long time to like develop that skill? Because you strike me as a prodigious type of guy. Like you were doing this at 12 years old, playing over these complex jazz changes,
I think
which is not usual.
I think part of it for me, I mean, even now, a lot of times it's relying on instinct, because to be good at this, at improvised music or anything, I guess, when you're doing it, you can't, or at least I can't be questioning anything. If I'm questioning something, like what are the changes, or where am I, or what's going on, I'm just bound to screw it up. So when I first started, I had no idea. A lot of the technical aspects, I would just listen and use my intuition. And there was a lot of things I was not comprehending. Like I didn't know what the chord, I just knew maybe sometimes I would know what the key was. I knew the melody, and I would just play along with the record, try to mimic, Because I remember before I knew about harmony, I just thought, wow, these people are really great at making random stuff up, that sounds good. To be honest, for some reason, I just had the idea that they were all acting off of instinct, it wasn't a super mathematical thing. I was just like, wow, these guys are kind of just geniuses, and, they're making up lines over, I didn't know what it was, but.
Now, I'm a bit older than you, but I remember copying West Montgomery licks off of a vinyl record, and just listening to it over and over again. And that's how I learned. It was much harder back then. You didn't have this YouTube, where you could learn. These young 8-year-old kids playing incredibly technical music on YouTube. It never existed back then. You had to learn off the vinyl records, or even worse, cassette tapes.
Right. I heard people would wear out records.
Oh, yeah. I used to play Ornette Coleman on a cassette tape. And it was like crazy. Since you came to New York, what kind of musical opportunities did open up for you? And would you say that it was directly contributable to playing on the street in front of Apple Store and other street places that, where people had discovered you, or other musicians said, hey, you got to check out this cat. He's playing in front of Bryant Park. Go check him out. And then maybe that's how you ended up getting a gig.
Well, I would say that, it certainly it's exposed me to a lot of people, and I made a lot of friends like you, just meeting cool people on the street. I think there were actually, in fact, a couple gigs I got, but they were special occasions like wedding parties or things like that. And I would meet people who were very appreciative. that really took something positive from it, and I also met some people who didn't appreciate it as much.
Yeah,
Which
we all meet people like that.
yeah,
How did you how did you meet Sylvia Cuenca and end up in her band? Because that's something where, like I was shocked, and then I didn't see you for about 6 months, and then you tell me you're in Sylvia Cuenca's band. Now that's some pretty heavy shoes to fill, because I know that she was Joe Henderson's drummer for like 17 years, and now you got the gig.
yeah. Well, part of it, going back to the busking thing, I think playing so much, because we would be playing a lot of times at minimum 4 hours straight,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., almost daily, as much as humanly possible. I think that really
Wow.
brought my game to another level because of just the commitment to the craft. And that's in New York, yeah. But the person who introduced me to Sylvia was a friend and sort of mentor of mine, David Kokoski. He's a piano player out in New York City. And I had met Dave by reaching out. A lot of the opportunities I have been able to benefit from in New York City, I think came out of me reaching out to people I admired, and it kind of goes all the way back to, playing with Laura Newman in Colorado. I wanted to reach for opportunities or levels that were beyond my current abilities.
Yeah. Did you have to audition for Sylvia?
Well, I sort of have an audition in the sense of, Dave referred me for a gig at this place called Cellar Dog, formerly known as Fat Cat, and we had a gig there. It was with him, Essiet on bass, and Sylvia on drums, and there was a whole list of standards and more obscure songs that Sylvia wanted to do, and including some originals. So I really did all I could to just come prepared, really prepared for those,
Yeah. Now you said something very interesting, that you reached out to people and you made your opportunities. So that segues me into my next question is, what is the best advice that you would give a young jazz musician who wants to break into the scene today? I see so many talented people, but very few people that actually play with a jazz luminary, you know? So there's something else that sets you apart from just talent alone that enables you to get opportunities that other musicians who also are very talented would not get.
Well, there's a couple bits of advice I would say, and it's something you have to, I guess, learn over time, but not directly connecting your creative and intellectual self-worth with how you're received, what kind of popularity you have, or artistic acclaim. That is something that one should be thankful for if it's granted to them, but I don't think it's always reflective of the good work you're doing, expressing yourself and working at the craft. But the main focus, I think, has to be dedication to the craft, dedication to listening to the music constantly, whatever music gives you pleasure, and dedication to the fundamentals of the instrument, and dedication to kind of chiseling away, kind of like we're a master sculptor or a wannabe master sculptor. So chiseling away at that marble until we kind of craft the artist we want to be.
That's really great advice. But I think it also helps to be a personable chap, to be able to get opportunities. Would you not agree?
And I think, well, maybe anybody who's an artist maybe has, or I guess everybody has the potential to be more selfish or self-indulgent, and that's a normal thing I think everybody has to struggle with. But I really try to be kind to all of the people I'm working with, and it's kind of a wrestling thing when you're a performing artist, right? Because part of it is about that self-confidence and presenting yourself to people, but but I really try to serve the people I'm working with. I really try to be kind and amenable and honest, expressing love, and I think if you can be aware of trying to build a level of self-confidence, then you don't have a lot of times people act out of whack because they're insecure, and I notice that happens a lot in New York or competitive musical environments. But if you have that confidence, okay, here are my strengths and my weaknesses, you can totally be cool around somebody who's a legend or somebody who's just starting out, and it's totally fine, and you can just appreciate people for who they are.
I couldn't agree with you more, because when you finished your set back last November and we first struck conversation, I walked over to you and you sensed it and walked over to me. I think asked me something about, can I grab something from you, or do you have something? I said no. But then all of a sudden, within like minutes, we're talking about Alan Holdsworth. But of course, I was like gaga because like I just love the music. But you bring up something very important, is that don't be so concerned with the crowd. Focus on what you're doing. Focus on your art. Focus on the fundamentals. And if you do that, the rest will take care of itself. That's sort of like what I'm gathering from you, is if you're true to your music and you're honest with your music and you are not over preoccupied with external forces, then you will win.
I think so. Yeah, having patience, and also maybe another thing that that I continually try to overcome and I try to embody is just an openness to different perspective. And I notice this a lot as a student and being in the professional world. Sometimes it's easy to let for people to disregard differing opinions or advice. A lot of times people will openly reject unwarranted advice or unwarranted perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I really try not to ever do that. Even it could be, this has happened to me, a random open a discussion with me for whatever reason, and I really try, assuming that they're a cool person, a safe person to be around, I just try to hear them out and see what they have to offer. Or if an elder musician has something to say about my playing that could be improved, or they think I need to check something out, I really try to take it to heart, because I don't know, I think it just broadens my perspective and my set of tools. And I think it can be really destructive to cut yourself off from other people and reject differing perspectives.
Yeah. That's great advice, really. Just be a good person. Just be yourself and be honest and true, and treat everyone the way that you would want to be treated, I suppose, even though that is a cliche, but it's so true. How do you go about composing music? Do you generally get an idea or a riff and then expand on that? Or do you come up with a harmony first, or do you come up with something else? I'm just curious about that.
There's a lot of different ways. I mean, more often than not, I'm really inspired by other people's work. So I'll be listening to a certain artist a lot. It could be a classical composer or a film composer or a jazz artist or world music or funk or any kind of style. But a lot of times I'll be in the shower or on a walk or on the subway, and just a melody fragment pops into my head, so I get my phone out and put voice memo on and record that for later. And then I come back to it, and it's usually an improvisatory process, so I have that one little seed. It could be a bass line even, right? Or like I hear a chord motion or a rhythm, and so I try to record that the best I can, and then I get to a piano, or I get to the horn or to the computer and start trying to sculpt something out of that, But sometimes it's even like a rhythm, I listen to a drum groove or something.
Right. Do you ever dream music and then wake up and then all of a sudden say, I've got to record that? Have your phone next to your bed? Because I've heard some musicians have done that. Sting has done that, where he came up with Every Breath You Take, came out of a dream. essentially. Does that ever happen to you?
There are definitely moments where I have vivid dreams about musicians or musical experiences, playing music or speaking to my heroes or them speaking to me. So I don't know what that exactly means, but I have those experiences. And in response to your question, I'm not sure that I've had, a music birthed out of a dream, but definitely moments where I'm lying in bed with my eyes closed, about to drift off, and I just keep mulling over an idea. So I have to get my keyboard out and play through it a couple times and have my recorder out so I don't lose the idea if it becomes anything.
Now, you mentioned heroes. I just figured we'd touch upon this. Who were your biggest major musical influences growing up?
Growing up, Louis Armstrong and Barney Bigard, Earl Father Hines, Velma Middleton. They're all in this radio broadcast recording record that I have. My parents initially had it, and I discovered that. Influence, I would say, would be Frank Sinatra. His music, his recordings. Before I even started playing the horn, I fell in love with just the American songbook stuff that he recorded. I just was lucky enough to be
Two.
exposed to that.
Yeah, I grew up
And
with Frank Sinatra myself. My parents played him incessantly. 3 minutes left, exactly. So, just really quickly, what is the Denver jazz music scene like?
man, it's pretty remarkable. It's very welcoming, very supporting of new artists. Uh, there's a lot of great musicians out here. Trumpeter Brad Good, pianist Eric Gunnison, drummer Paul Romaine, drummer Harold Summey, pianist and organist Vlad Gersevich.
Mhm.
I mean, the list goes on and on. There's just so many great artists out here, and um, world famous historical artists that came out of Colorado. So it's a beautiful scene. You might not as easily develop global acclaim as you would somewhere like Los Angeles or New York City, but it's a great music scene. Really.
Fantastic. And I know that recently you played Red Rocks as well. I was reading that, which is amazing.
That was an opportunity that came out of doing the community concerts during COVID.
Mm.
So I wouldn't have had that maybe once in a lifetime opportunity without just kind of freely giving to the community. I say that, but it's also again, it's like this double-edged thing. Like I wanted to do it for the community, and it pleases me to see people experience joy. But I also selfishly, I'm just so in love with music that I want that. I want to play as much as I can.
I could sense that, that you could play like 16, 20 hours on end. I played with this Indian drummer who used to study with Henry Adler, who is Buddy Rich's teacher back in my youth. And he did marathons of, say, like 2 days straight where he would play his drums. And, like he would bleed. He like things like that. That's dedication to the craft. Anyway, we have less than 1 minute to go. Did you want to say anything? Any parting thoughts?
Yeah, I guess things that I'm thinking of now is just being wary of this pursuit of fame and celebrity, because those things kind of gets murky. It's easy to confuse that with pursuit of the craft on the highest level, because we all want to be loved and accepted, and we all want to be successful. But I'm personally working on rekindling my love with the craft and not being so concerned about this, the stuff that doesn't matter.
So awesome. Thank you, Rico. It's such a pleasure. We'll see you very soon around New York City.
All right, man. Sounds good. Thanks.